Thank you. Now, if you happen to win,
I'll give it to you.
I got one, because now I have a claim.
If I sit here, then maybe they'll give me a tip.
I will tell you.
She loved it.
She
really loved it.
I can't sit there on the state side.
No, you cannot.
And not apologize.
Don't apologize for something that's so clear. Thank you. You do a great job.
And the quilter was a triangle one.
Yeah.
It's really pretty. There was a pattern, but then you had to add pattern.
Mine's the guinea pig.
But I think it was one of those dessert rolls, ombre dessert.
I just gotta find class.
Really?
1 minute, 40 seconds until SewTime April 2025.
Ooh.
It's very high tech. I made that. No, I didn't.
Oh, that's a light hanger.
Are you gonna have
A quilt?
class?
I can't use that. I don't even know who did that one.
Rachel,
Oh,
it was a pattern, but you had to have the ombre dessert roll to go with it.
see, there's always something. Isn't there?
Well, you just have to get it back in stock. Well, it wasn't a free pattern, you had to pay for the pattern and the pattern.
Okay, and sometimes they do, the manufacturers have different patterns you get.
Yeah.
But when, you'd have to do it like they are.
Yeah, she just got her first sewing machine. We were at the Jeep swap.
Okay, we are going to start SewTime 2025 April. I'm Eddie. Nice to see everybody out there in television land. Is it 2024? No, it's not. It's 2025. Anyway, today's topic is on sewing machines. And I feel very much that it's important that we know the history of a sewing machine. For a lot of reasons. It has to do with if you understand where it came from and how it evolved in a succinct amount of time, it can really allow things to make better sense. And then we actually appreciate it a whole lot more. I will forewarn you that as we go through these steps and as you're seeing this, it's not a happy story in the beginning or through the middle, really. Like so many things in the 1700s, 1800s, there was a lot of, it's when patents were happening and there were, all sorts of things. So you're going to learn a lot about that in a very short amount of time, but this is only going to take 10 minutes and you'll be a smarter person for it. So here we go. Without further ado, and then Scott, I think you're going to have to train this on the television screen. Here we go.
But while needles have been a tool for humankind for millennia, a machine that can replicate the human motion of the needle is a relatively new invention. The first design for a sewing machine is still accepted to be in 1790, when Thomas Saint, a cabinet maker in England, designed and detailed a machine intended for use on leather and canvas. The machine used a chain stitch in which a series of loop stitches form a chain-like pattern. The process uses two-point stitching hole that pierces the material and a forked point rod that would carry the thread through the hole where it was poked underneath. But Saint never appeared to market his design. It was never produced or used in any large numbers. It's assumed that he probably had at least one working device, but no original examples exist. But in 1874, an engineer was able to replicate the design using those original patent drawings. While several machines were patented in the early part of the 19th century, either the designs failed or were not successfully marketed. Justice Mattersberger, an Austrian tailor, was granted a patent in 1814 for a machine that he created to recreate the motions of the human hand while sewing. He never marketed the design, and the patent expired 3 years later. He died in the poorhouse in Vienna, never having had any success. The first practical machine, see why
Poorhouse.
was created in 1829 by a tailor named Bartholomew Timonier, who recruited Auguste Ferrand, an engineer, to help with patent drawings. Their patent was granted by the French government in July of 1830. Timonier successfully negotiated a contract with France for the manufacture of army uniforms and opened the first machine-based sewing factory with 80 machines. However, his factory was burned in an act of arson, allegedly by a group of tailors who feared their jobs would be replaced by the invention. Timonier was inside when the fire began, but escaped with his life. But just as others before him, his machine never fully caught on, and he died in poverty.
Poverty.
In 1832, an American mechanic and inventor named Walter Hunt devised a working sewing machine, but concerned with the welfare and success of seamstresses and tailors, decided against filing the patent. Hunt did, however, go on to patent the safety pen, the fountain pen, a streetcar bell, a coal-fired stove, an ice boat, an ice plow, a street sweeping machine, and an early repeating rifle design. But it wasn't until 1844 that all these elements came together to create a truly practical machine, and that came from Englishman John Fisher, who in 1844 patented a machine for making lace that was very much like one that was created by Isaac Singer in 1851. Importantly, though, while Fisher's device earned a patent, that patent was apparently either lost or misfiled by the patent office. Next was Elias Howe Jr. in Massachusetts. He had been an apprentice in a textile factory and later in the shop of a master mechanic, where he latched onto the concept of making a sewing machine. In 1846, his machine was the first to be patented with a lock stitch design and a needle with an eye at the point, powered by a hand crank. Howe spent a great deal of money on improvements and marketing. After failing to find ambassadors in the United States, his brother marketed the machine in London. There, William Thomas, a factory owner, purchased one for £250. Howe then traveled to London to further design in conjunction with Thomas, but after business disagreements and the failing health of his wife, returned to the United States. He was penniless, not even able to afford the steerage to get home. Aboard the ship, he served as cook to earn his way and became soon afterwards a widow. It was learned that the sewing machine had proliferated with various patents for minor differences, but he was unable to afford the court cases in defense of his own patent. Shortly after the death of Howe's wife, an American inventor named Isaac Singer was working in a machine shop in Boston, where sewing machines designed by a pair named Blodgett and Leroux were being repaired. The shop owner asked Singer if he could improve the machine because it was cumbersome to make and utilize. Singer's improvements, a straight needle instead of a curved one and a linear shuttle instead of a circular one, were memorialized in his patent number 8294 in August 1851.
If your neck looks like this, save your desk or use for every additional 10 pounds.
Technical difficulties.
It was about this time that Howe started borrowing money from friends and family in order to pursue court cases against all the companies that were manufacturing machines in violation of his patent, including Singer. Singer tried to argue that Howe's design was not original because Walter Hunt had invented the machine previous to that. But since Hunt had never filed for his patent, Howe won the dispute and earned the right to have royalties on all lock-stitch machines that used eye-pointed needles. Originally, the royalties were $25 per machine. And with the sewing machine adapting and improving so rapidly, many other patent holders pursued legal cases in what is often been called the sewing machine war. In October of 1856, the president of one sewing machine company, Grover and Baker, proposed a sort of legal truce. He worked with several manufacturers, including Singer, Wheeler and Wilson, and Elias Howe, to form the Sewing Machine Combination, or Sewing Machine Trust. The group pooled their patents and agreed to share the profits, with Howe getting a reduced royalty of $5 per machine sold in the United States and $1 for every machine sold abroad. This agreement allowed manufacturers to concentrate on production and sales, not legal action. It ended in 1877, when the last patent expired. Because Howe was paid per machine, his royalty records allow us to know just how quickly sewing machine production grew. In 1853, Wheeler and Wilson produced just shy of 800 machines. By 1859, the number was 21,000, with the total for the 7 years being almost 34,000 sewing machines. Singer produced slightly more than 100 machines in 1853, and about 11,000 in 1859, with a 7-year total of over 23,000. In 1860, 110,000 machines were made in the United States. In 1860, the New York Times chimed, "Such are some of the important results accomplished by the sewing machines, these Lilliputian needle women that never become weary while performing the labor of human fingers. Every day extends their use into remoter parts of the country and of the world. They are used in China, in Hindustan, Australia, Turkey, Africa, South America, and throughout Europe. In fact, everywhere that busy needle is plied, these tireless workers have found their way, carrying relief for women's trembling hands and weary eyes. The swift-flying needle, the best boon to a woman in the 19th century, has already won many victories, and soon the song of the shirt will be heard only in tradition of sufferings passed away. But in all this growth, one company stood out and is still a household name today. Singer, despite having to pay royalties, built a flourishing business. He invested in mass production with interchangeable parts, making his machines less expensive to produce, and introduced a smaller machine intended for home use. Edward Clark, Singer's attorney and part owner of the company, launched the concept of installation payments or hire purchase plans. This allowed the machine to be used for income while still paying off the purchase. According to one article, Singer said, "I don't care a damn for the invention. The dimes are what I'm after." He made many dimes. At the time of his death in 1875, his company was one of the first American-based companies to be multinational and was profiting some $22 million a year. According to American Science and Invention, Singer was the first to spend more than $1 million on advertising. The company's website currently claims that it produced the first practical sewing machine, and that by 1890, the company had 90% of the global market share. Isaac Singer and Elias Howe both died multi-millionaires, and the sewing machine went on to impact society in other ways. Firstly, the industrialized garment industry allowed for cheaper clothing, allowing the purchase of new clothing instead of repairing worn ones. This freed up time otherwise spent creating or maintaining a family's clothing. Prior to sewing machines, the amount of time it took an experienced seamstress to create a gentleman's dress shirt by hand was 14 hours. A frock coat would take 10, and a pair of pantaloons took 5. With a sewing machine, the time was drastically reduced, between 1 and 3 hours per item. The change allowed women to seek employment outside the home. The machine also transformed industry. More clothing could be produced more cheaply, and the increased income for more workers increased demand. The garment industry grew, along with ancillary industries like growing cotton, manufacturing machines and parts, and department stores to sell the products. With the new industry, however, came new challenges of industrialization. Ready-to-wear clothing did not require specialized craftsmen. The textile industry needed a huge quantity of employees in factories. With the sewing machine and the use of assembly line techniques, unskilled labor could be utilized by textile companies to make clothing even less expensive, although oftentimes creating unsafe working conditions for underpaid workers. The most well-known of these instances was the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in Manhattan, New York. On Saturday, March 25th, 1911, a fire started on the 8th floor of the Ash Building, where the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory manufactured women's blouses on the top 3 floors of the 10-story building. The 8th and 10th floors had telephone connection and were alerted to the fire, but the 9th did not. Adding insult to injury, the exits were locked, preventing employees from sneaking breaks or stealing clothing. The managers could check purses until employees exited through one set of doors. And with the fire blocking the only open stairwell, many resorted to jumping from the windows to escape the flames. The death toll in the day was 146 garment workers. Only 23 of them were men. The tragedy of that day led to many legislative reforms and creation of new organizations. The American Society of Safety Professionals was formed to help create industry standards for occupational safety and health. The New York State Legislature formed the Factory Investigating Commission to prevent hazards and loss of life. Their investigation led to the creation of 38 new labor laws in New York. The impact of the invention of the sewing machine was truly profound. It changed economies, it changed industries, it changed women's roles in industry, it changed the way that we regulate industry, but it also powerfully impacted culture. Things like department stores and advertising and consumer culture were powerfully impacted by sewing machines, which were among the first industrialized items to be marketed directly towards women. The introduction of electric sewing machines, which were first available in 1889, but became much more available after the First World War, was part of what spurred the demand to have electricity in homes. With factories spewing out clothing, fashions changed much more quickly, and clothing didn't have to last as long. And new stores were created, or stores were transformed. Entire industries were transformed in order to showcase those fashions. In other industries, like interior design, things like drapes or furniture, or the interior of automobiles, were also revolutionized by the invention. According to Time magazine, Mahatma Gandhi, who was a man.
Okay, that's enough of the history. And now we speak of like today and where we are today and where we were maybe 40 years ago. So when I started in this business, it was about 40 years ago, 1987, and it was in Ballard. and I was a tennis pro waiting for my job at the Gallery Tennis Club. It was being remodeled. And then my father-in-law and a guy named Paul Aponte had just started a collaborative business by buying a store called Ballard Sewing and Vacuum from a man who just wanted to get out. And it hadn't been going really well. They were on their third manager, and then I came in and he said, hey, why don't you just manage this store, and then, you know, when your tennis thing comes, you can just leave, because we're probably going to close it anyway. So I did that, and then we found out we were pregnant with our son, Riley, who was born in 1988. So what happened is we did some things, and the Ballard store really took off. And there was a lot of motivation for its success. And I realized, with the help of my partners, my father-in-law and Paul, that, boy, we really had something here. And behind me is an example of just about how far we went. This is a gift from Pfaff Corporation, Germany, that celebrated the fact that we were the largest Pfaff dealer in the world.
Wow.
And so it's been in my care and safekeeping for some time. Paul will probably want it back at some point. And you might even see this online, you never know. But it's extremely meaningful. And this shows you just the quality and the beauty of these machines. I want to talk first about the idea of quality. And my favorite machine in the world is a Pfaff 130. And the reason why I believe this machine is my favorite is because of the history that it holds. Anybody that has one of these machines in their arsenal is a happy person. And the reason why is it's called a tailoring machine. These are heavily sought after by sailors, especially people that have sailing ships. The reason why is this can cut through heavy fabric, sailcloth, leather with no problem whatsoever. Also, it was a machine where you could actually hook a hand wheel on it and you didn't need power to run it, of which that hand wheel kit has been available, I believe, until recently. So these machines are amazing. Now, this machine was first produced in 1932, but they were not available here in America until the 50s. Anybody know why? The war. Yeah, this was the machine that was so important to the Germans. And by listening to how the evolution of the sewing machine industry and all the drama associated with it, this machine holds a very special place in history. And that's why I believe that it's one of the most precious machines to try to get if you ever see one in an estate sale, because people will not know what it is. Yeah.
You mentioned for sailmaking, does that have a zigzag?
It does. Yep. And it has a motor. And it has what's called a full rotary industrial hook assembly. So we're going to talk about that first. So what happens is, in the beginning, most machines were oscillators. So we're going to define today what an oscillating hook assembly is. But before we do that, what we're going to do is can you see? Not really, huh?
No.
I'm going to have to get on this side, so Ann, you might want to, I'm going to be blocking you, I think. But anyway, this, only if you want to see.
Yeah.
This is an oscillator. So what that means is this. Now let's back up the tracks a little bit. The device that picks up the thread is called a hook assembly. and there's a tip of a hook. And as it comes around, it grabs the thread and thus will form the knot from the second thread on top. It's a good way to just understand it. We'll keep it simple. However, for a long time, there was only these, where they just fall out in pieces like this. So what we have here is we have the shuttle, which is the hook, because you can always tell because there's the tip of the hook. It's the part that when your needle hits it, then the thread won't let go and it will bunch and bind and break and all that. So what we get really good at our service center is really inspecting the hook assemblies. And then we can remove them, buff them, hone them, and make them just like new. So this is what we call the heart of a sewing machine. This is the keeper that holds the hook in the machine. It's important too. And this part that's carved out allows the thread to slip through it. This is a bobbin and a bobbin case, which you're more than familiar with. So here we have the shuttle, this shuttle that actually takes it back and forth. So if you watch this work, this stops and comes back and stops and comes back, thus casting the thread off, and it forms the knot. When you have a machine like this, you want that piece to be in the left position whenever you put the hook back in, because it's easier. And where the hook lives is on what's called the race, the hook race. The race is the part that you must oil. And it needs a couple drops of oils, and then it just comes down into the race, and you cannot believe how much better it performs. The keeper then goes on, and then this has to be retained, and then the bobbin case goes in. So by starting with the hook assembly, you understand that we don't always recommend oscillating hook assemblies. And the reason why is because we forever believed that full rotary hook assemblies they're not only quieter, but they're stronger, and there's way more innovation possible. So that was supported by Bernina. Bernina, with the record and with machines prior to that, and all the way up to their current model, what's called a 3 series, a 335, believe it or not, it's still an oscillator, back and forth. And Bernina makes the best one in the world, hands down. However, the 5 series Bernina and the 7 series Bernina and everything going forward, the 4, 5, and 7, and 9, all have full rotary hook assemblies. And the reason why is that's where the engineering and design comes in. They had to go forward, and they could not do that with an oscillator. And boy, do they make a great product. We're talking so many components are handmade, and the precision is phenomenal. So then we go back to the FOF. The FOF is a full rotary hook assembly. So the hook is a piece of metal with a tip on it, and it goes one way without ever stopping. This also is a full rotary hook assembly, and listen to how this sounds. It purrs. And it is super strong. This is the HD9 by Janome. Bernina has it as what's called an 08. It's over there. They're the same machine, made in the same factory, with the same parts, by the same people. with a different paint job. And the company that makes it is Janome. So we sell Janome and Bernina, and people basically choose based on what they like or the best buy they can get. So hook assemblies are important to understand because you want to know what you're getting. So I have a question for you. If these are side loading full rotaries, this is top loading with the top loading bobbin. Is it full rotary? Answer is yes. It has a stainless steel hook that goes one way like this. Now, inside of here is a bobbin. This easily releases. That's why people really like the Baby Locks and the Brothers, because the stitch plates come off so nice and the access to them is fantastic. And what it allows them to do is to keep things lint-free with like canned air. However, Anne, did you know that canned air has a second purpose? You do now. If you tip it upside down, and if I were to fire this, you would be very angry with me. But if you have chewing gum in your rug and you need to get it off the rug, if you hit it now with this, you'll freeze it. And then you get a hammer and whack it. And it will come off the rug. The reason I share this with you is that this is also semi-dangerous, especially with children. We don't want to let them get this and then their brother is over here, because then he gets free on freeze and his hair changes forever. So that's canned air. Scott will share with you in just a little while another element to the bobbin case area that is important to understand. What our sewers do that they're famous for is they lint up their machines. So much so that you think a mouse was living in there. It sometimes, I mean, we have seen things like you cannot even believe. Just piled up lint. So doing regular maintenance on this area can really help your machine to perform well. Now we want to talk about oil just briefly. This is the oil we recommend. This is purely refined oil. That's what we call it. And this is a zoom spout. We really like these because they have these long spouts. And so you can get in there and not over oil the machine, which is also not good. Just a drop or two is fine in the hook race. So then the question happens that now you understand this machine wouldn't be hard to find the oil point in the hook. None of these mechanical machines. But the question was raised in the last session, but does this machine require oil? Well, the answer is this is an aria. So once in a while, it is important to remove the bobbin case. And where the bobbin case lives in there is the race. And just to put a drop of oil in there does two things. First, it lubricates, but the second thing, it cleans. You'll be surprised the dirt and the gunk that comes out. So that's why we always say when you do oil your machine, with the machine unthreaded, run a piece of fabric through there that you don't care about. Because that way, if anything shows its ugly head, it'll be controlled. So these are all tips. You're all wise, but we wanted you to understand, first of all, what a hook was. Second of all, the difference between oscillators and full rotary. And the second thing we need to get into is tensions, to remind you about tension assemblies. It's one of the largest problems that we face. The phone calls we receive at times can be very aggressive, but we're okay with that because we know these are your babies. but we really do care. And when you get this situation, it can be very emotional. So this is a beehive tension assembly. That's what it's called. This is a beehive tension assembly on this FOF. That is a beehive tension assembly, and those are on that serger. So what they have is they have discs, and then they have a spring giving pressure. So the first rule is always, when we thread the machine and we start, the foot needs to be in the up position, because as you all know why, it does what to the discs? It opens them. The thing that you forget sometimes, and that we witness, is when we have somebody thread it for us, they kind of do this. They have their left hand behind their back or in their pocket, and they have one hand and they go, done. Well, the problem is the thread's not in the disc. And it also, you haven't engaged the take-up spring. The check spring is what it's called. So what we try to tell people is when you thread, you hold the thread with your right hand, not moving, and you thread with your left hand. As a result, you're keeping what? The thread taut. And if you do this one thing, you'll be happy. You will really, it changes the world. And then you come through the tension assembly, you come up through the check spring, pulling on it until it clicks, because the check spring has to dance. Because the purpose of the check spring is what? To take the slack out of the line. What happens if we don't get it behind the check spring, which happens a lot, or all the way in the tension assembly? What happens is we get big loops underneath the fabric. And the reason why is because the top tension affects the look of the stitch on the underside of the fabric. The bobbin tension affects the look of the stitch on the top side of the fabric. And the way to remember that is that the bobbin is pulling which way? Down. And this is pulling up from the underside. So if you can keep that spatial idea, and if you ever see big loops, first thing you do is you check your threading. After we clear the check spring, and the check spring dances, because that's what they do when they're in right, they go up and down, up and down, up and down while the machine's sewing. We go around the take-up lever, back down, and then proper threading through, and then we lower our foot. So this is pretty much the way it is on all sewing machines. If this is a beehive, this is called a lay-in tension assembly. And it's going to be on all the current machines. So it makes life really easy, but we still do what? We hold with our right and we thread with our left, going around, down, right to left, and through. So with that said, notice the Morris. The Morris sewing machine was made in America. And there's some people that actually collect these. When I see one in this condition with manual, with accessories, that works beautifully, this is why I kept this one. But you can find these purple, fuchsia. It was almost like somebody went to, Woodstock. And they said, wow, I'm gonna color these, like, wow, man, this is like gonna be great. And that happened. And so they're all different colors, but boy, do they sew nice. Yes?
Were those originally made in the 30s?
I don't know when this was made, but I think it was after. I think it was more like in the 40s, late 40s or 50s. But we can look it up on our phone.
Because cars were pastel in the 50s. also.
Yeah. So this would be interesting. So you just Google search Morse, M-O-R-S-E, sewing machines. What year were they made? And we'll know. So anyway, this is an example of U.S. manufacturing, and that's why I have it here. Singer, of course, was also until, I don't have the year, but are all of you aware that Singer is no longer Singer, right? Yeah, Singer is a part of Viking and Pfaff. So the company name is 1930s, yeah. SVP is the name of the company. And so we went away from Pfaff a few years back because there was no innovation. And that to us was not acceptable. We were tired of seeing the same paint jobs on both Vikings and Pfaffs, and they were identical. So that's why we switched and we were open to Bernina, and it was really a very, very good choice because Bernina picked up the Pfaff dual feed that was on the 1475s, the 7570s, and the 1171s and all of that. Someday, Bernina will have a dual feed on something below a 5 series, and that will be a great day because it can be incorporated into the 4 series very easily, I believe. So it's 2:30 now. How many, do we have any show and tell today?
Yes.
How many? We have Cheryl and Dawn. Okay, good. We're not gonna do it quite yet because now Scott's gonna come forward. So Scott Rohde is our lead service tech, and he wants to share with you a few other ideas about service and maintenance that would be very meaningful. So Scott, you know where to stand?
On the marker?
Yeah.
Okay, so first thing I want to talk about are Janome machines. So who owns a Janome? So if you take the needle plate off, you take the bobbin out, you take the bobbin case out, you look at the hook, you see a little hole in there and there's that lint in there. Don't pull the lint out.
I figured that out.
That's not lint. That's
Yeah,
that's
I realized.
That's an
After
oil
a
wet.
little bit, it's like, oh, that's
Because
supposed to
we
be.
I don't know how many we get in here, we pull them apart and the wick's gone.
It's not very long, I just.
Right,
Oh, wait,
if
that's
you ever pull it
attached.
out, throw it away, get some batting, a little piece of batting and tweezer, just pop it in there, put some oil on it. But Janome's renowned for putting wicks on all their oil points. They're one of the easiest machines to work on because you know exactly where the oil is, because if there's a wick there, you put oil on it. Yeah, sure.
I have 2 different Janomes. So you should be putting oil on pretty much any machine. Is that, I didn't think the newer
You
ones
should
needed it.
like change your needles. Change your needle every project.
Right.
Change your long arms, change your needle every quilt. You know, double check the oiling, you know, every project.
Okay,
Don't over oil, like Eddie said, because that can be, you know, you get on your
Right.
project and stuff like that.
okay.
Um,
But yeah, so something like that, just 1 or 2 drops
so
about every project.
I honestly recommend the machines that have the plastic bobbin cases. You really don't need to oil those that much because they are so slick and
Right.
they rotate just fine. But if you have metal hooks, metal bobbin cases, those definitely need oil.
Okay,
The oscillators, even the rotaries. So anything
Okay.
with metal on it, because you have horizontal rotary and then you have vertical rotary. The vertical ones really need more oil
okay,
because of the way they're spinning.
right.
Eddie covered the threading of the flossing of threaders. Threaders. This is what Thomas was supposed to talk about, but I've got his notes right here, so I'm gonna cheat. So if your machine has a threader on it and it's not threading, you've tried everything, change your needle first. And then also when you do change your needle, make sure your needle's all the way up. Because if that's off by even 1/2 millimeter, that threader hook can get in there or you'll damage the threader. And stay larger than a 75. Don't go any smaller than 75 needles because that will damage your threader hooks too. What else did Thomas hear? Oh, so you people that have multiple machines, and we see this every week too. You'll get a machine like the Genomes, the Baby Lux Brothers, Berninas. A lot of them use a class 15 bobbin, but you may have a FOF that uses a class L. We see class L bobbins in the class 15 machines, and what that does is the bobbin starts rocking around, and you're calling us saying, my stitches look terrible. And we get the machine in, and that's the first thing we see is a class L bobbin and a class 15 machine.
Is the Class L the ones that are dome shaped?
They can be domed or flat because FOF uses the flat ones. Singer had some of the class Ls that had a little curvature to them.
And that's called a class 66.
66, but they are the same, almost the same size.
Because I know when I first got my Bernina in
Yeah.
85, you had to go to Bernina because even though the singers looked close, they
Right,
They
do.
weren't quite right, yeah. 15 class would have been closer than a 66 class for that Bernina. It may have gotten you by, but there is a slight
Curve to the
curve
66.
to a Bernina 15 class bobbin.
Yeah, I just noticed, I know the main thing to look for was the center cylinder had to be proud of the flat plates for
Right.
the Bernina.
And then also thing on class 15s that we see, like the older Berninas use the class 15 steels, the metal ones that have holes on the side or the solids. But we find them in a horizontal hook machine. The problem with those are they have the little collar on the top that puts the two flats together. So as the thread's coming around, it catches that collar, increases your upper tension, it pulls. So the class 15 plastic bobbins are all smooth. So that's why they work best on the Brother Baby Locks and the Genomes, Berninas, and stuff like that. And then Thomas says, here too, be careful when using external spool stands. So we actually had a couple machines within the last month that, if you know an external spool stand, it's a stand that where you can put your spools up, and so it goes up through the thread guide, and then you can, for larger spools. A couple machines, the thread got caught into the hand wheel and actually had wound an entire spool of thread around the upper shaft, got into the motor and the belt, and wrapped itself around the lower shaft. And I pulled the cover off, and I just stood back and go, Thomas, you guys see this. How does that happen? So if you're using those spool stands, make sure you're watching the thread away from the hand wheel and stuff like that. And those are that. Anybody got anything for me?
Could you repeat the thing about needles?
So for machines that have built-in threaders on them, you want to use 75 or larger, because if you put a 70, size 70, which is a really small eye, you put it in and you hit your needle threader, that hook is going to try to go through that hole. What it does is it deflects it, and it'll actually bend that hook or flip it to the side and ruin your threader.
Okay.
So 75s are larger for the threading machines.
I thought I was told not to use the high pressure air.
Yes. Yeah, that was
So
what I
yes,
read
you
too.
can use the high pressure air. What I recommend,
Okay.
and what we recommend, is you put the hose on it,
Yeah.
take the needle, play it off, take your needle off, take the presser foot off, pull out the bobbin and bobbin case. Get back, if you have a small vacuum or hose, put the hose to the backside, blow, blow, blow. That way your vacuum cleaner is capturing all that lint that's coming out
Okay.
and
Okay.
Yeah,
spraying it all over the place.
Thought it would just maybe embed stuff more and get it
It can do that too,
faster.
but if it forces it down, typically if you, under the free arms under here on all these machines, there's probably that much room underneath the feed system.
Okay.
So if it gets caught under there, you're gonna be fine.
Okay.
So the biggest thing is you don't want it caught in the feed dogs, because if the feed dogs are coming up and hitting your needle plate, there's no room for that.
Right.
If your machine's thumping like that, take your needle plate off and look at your feed dogs.
Okay.
And finally, thread.
Tensile strength on thread, yeah.
So you cannot believe how proud a lot of ladies are, sewers are, that they have found, you might want to get on the camera,
Okay.
found an old stash of thread, even as old as 60 years. Hello. Now, here's how you test it. You wrap this part, and if it does that, it's not good. It has no tensile strength. If you take Mettler, Gutermann, Aerofill, we're not big fans of dual duty, so you know. And you do this, guess what? You feel the big difference. Because now I've got my tensile strength. And it takes that much to break it. And the difference is night and day. So that is what we feel are the highlights and what you need to be aware of. So we're at 242. Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you like dual duty?
We found that if you take a strand of dual duty, pull it off the spool and take a look at it. And then after you take a look at it, if you don't see it, take your finger and go down it. It'll go smooth, then rough, then smooth, then rough, then smooth and rough.
So it's not consistent.
It's not consistent.
The way it's wound and stuff, and so
Yeah.
it really affect the tension.
So many years ago, we disposed of an entire put up of dual duty because it was creating so much trouble. And we learned that way that quality threads matter because that's the medium. I mean, that's what we're putting in our machine. So now we'd love to have the first person who would like to do show and tell. And we do have a gift for all of you. That's great. Who would like to go for? Okay. You want to go? Okay. Come on up, Dawn.
You want to help show? Okay.
I'll help her.
Okay, we have two different ones.
Here, stand right over here so everybody can see. Okay.
So Evergreen Peacemaker had a 4-patch exchange.
Yeah.
So I have this one, I have so many 4 patches. I have it in purple and I have it in blue with a blue background. So
Wowie.
So happy.
That's one.
Okay. See the
I
back?
like the back, yeah.
Everybody wants to see the back.
Binding in the back.
I always usually do weird backs.
Yeah,
These two don't
I
have.
like that.
And this one is called Retreat. And our quilt guild is using it for our hugs quilts, but I fell in love with it, so I had to make the king size.
Wow. California King?
No.
Oh, I love the back. Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
And all the boutiques are out of my stash, and except for this, the back, and you cannot tell that I got rid of any fabric, and my husband made 2 other quilts using my fabric.
I was
He's bad. We go fabric shopping, and he's like, "You need this one. You need this one." And then I did a
sounds
weird
like
one.
that follows me around like a pond.
Wow.
That's what I said.
Here's the back.
Like, and this is a photo print. So,
Are those all just 4 patches? In a specific way?
no,
Or
no.
some?
This,
Okay, yeah, now I'm seeing the
yeah,
linear pieces, okay.
yeah, this is a patch. or a-
Okay,
a block.
great, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm not good at folding.
that's okay. Just
I'm not going to wad it up.
That's right.
There we go.
all right.
Beautiful.
And Cheryl's up. We're only giving your first name, Cheryl, over here in front of the TV or the camera for the hundreds of people that are watching on the network.
I finally made this blouse pattern.
Oh,
Is that what you're wearing?
Yeah, this is what I'm wearing. Yeah, I got this, I don't know how many years ago. So,
And you turned it to
so,
beautiful.
and I got this, so it's awesome.
nice. Well, thank you. Wow, that's great. And anybody else? I think. Oh, Melissa Bear. Oh, you said your last name.
Oh, you're gonna get a bunch of, you're gonna get all kinds of calls.
Yeah. Here, right. You want me to hold that?
Well, these, Pam back there made these.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's on my list of things to make.
Yes, and she's got
Yeah.
the little tags on them.
And they're see-through.
Mm-hmm. So she's trying to find more plastic or vinyl.
Okay.
Okay, these are old, a couple years.
I don't.
Sewing machine covers, which doesn't fit my new M80.
No.
And then on the back I did,
Oh, that's your sewing machine covers. Let me see that.
Oh,
really cute.
well, toasters nowadays,
Toasted
yeah.
pieces at a time.
Oh, look at you, Melissa.
And then this was one all quilted on a hand machine, not a long arm.
Whoa.
That's right, yes.
Very nice. Wow.
Wow.
And then
That's very cool.
Oh, wow.
So is that like embroidery on the moon or what am I looking at there?
yeah, just a decorative stitch to.
A decorative satin
Wow.
stitch.
Oh.
No, it's more like a wild zigzag.
Oh, yeah.
Wild zigzag.
Wild zigzag. And then just
Really nice.
Really good.
quilted,
Did you do the Janome?
yes. My other Janome. Not the new one.
She has several Janomes.
Yes.
One that has a 13.5-inch neck, which is really cool.
Yes, it is.
All right, so now I wanted to tell you all about the HD9 class that happened the last 2 weekends. The HD9 class was a bag making class, and it was a hit. We have an example of the bag. That's what was made. Scott, can you get that?
I would like a class, but for cotton.
This was a fun class. I mean, right, Carrie? I mean, it was so successful. And one of the reasons it was successful, Janome provided HD9s for the entire class to use. So there was not one machine that did not perform perfectly. And there is very few times when I would say to customers, if there's one machine all of you should have if you have multiple machines, it's something that will do leather, vinyl, heavy stuff, as well as piecing. And what Janome did was they provided these, and we sell these by themselves on sale for $19.99, which is a really good deal. The 08s are $19.99, the Bernina ones. We sold these for $17.99 for the classroom models, and Janome gave everybody the HD9 advanced accessory kit, which is the table, and then we gave everybody the piecing kit. So they got huge value. The reason I'm mentioning this, we have one machine left out of 12. And if you ever needed a heavy duty machine, you could get one. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. But listen to this, and here's what I really like about this. Watch this. There's a lot of customers who have a problem, not with control, but with speed. And this one will stitch 1,000 stitches per inch or per minute. It's crazy fast. Crazy fast. And so this is a fun machine. This is a phenomenal product. So I wanted to tell you about this. And now we need to draw some prizes. So Carrie, do we have the prizes for their tickets? How many do we have?
Mo?
Yes.
Right now, we're done with the prize drawing. But do you know where the main differences between regular machine versus heavy duty machine? Like, what are you getting support?
Scott can answer that.
Yeah, she didn't get a ticket. She didn't get a ticket.
And you're.
Oh, we need to take a,
Well, that other girl. Anybody else need a
Caught me on the
ticket?
way in and she said, are you trying to pass
Oh,
me?
yeah, so we're gonna need to-
We were in such a hurry getting here. Raced in here to sit down and I didn't know I needed.
Okay.
Pressure, compressor.
This is the second one I've been
No matter
through
at
that
what
work.
speed you're going, it's the same pressure.
I came to one of their
Okay.
functions and I signed
And don't be surprised for their good motors.
it. And then.
So heavy duty, that is a quick torpedo model. That's the biggest difference. The heat mechanism is heavier.
Oh, okay, because, so I have the Skyline S7 and then the 9480. And I
9480 is
just-
closer to this.
I've just started getting into bag making and it really, I'm still struggling with some of the heavier stuff. And so I mean, I haven't tried the vinyl, but just.
Snooze, you
didn't like
lose,
to
babe.
Buy any vinyl?
Yeah,
You have to go beg from Laura real fast.
you could bring some of that in to the store and actually test it on one of these. Okay, you should do it. It's fun.
I'm just, but I'm also, that's a lot less expensive than the.
Yeah. But this is just a straight stitch machine.
Doesn't
Okay,
zigzag.
which,
There's no
which is,
zigzag. Fine, for what, for bag making and
Yeah.
piecing.
okay, yeah, because that's 90% of what I do.
Okay, what are we drawing for? Oh, this. Okay, we are now drawing for a serger pattern. Go ahead and read it. You can do it.
3, 2, 1.
Yay.
96.
Yay.
12.
Congratulations. And now, on a roll again. Look, you must be able to read to have this.
Okay, last 4 digits. 96, 33.
Notice the synergy is happening, just like at the holiday party. It's the weirdest thing ever. 250 people there, and it went in groups.
Yeah.
Okay, check.
96.
Next quote.
16.
There we go. It shifted.
Last one.
Oh, last one.
Okay, I stirred them. 96, 17. Oh. 17, going once.
9617.
She lost her ticket.
Oh, don't worry. You'll be getting a prize.
Everybody gets something. Well, how about 9618? We're going in a row.
There we go. All right. Okay, so I had mentioned to everybody that attends today's presentation that you would get a special gift. And what we decided, I think you all know that my brother-in-law is Jeff Belleville, and he is the distributor for Kai scissors. And Kai is an excellent brand scissor. It's probably the best scissor on the market. So I talked with Jeff, and Jeff said, yeah, what you want to do in a seminar like this is you want to protect all their Kai scissors. And so all of you today will be receiving a cheap pair of scissors for your husband or other person to use for all the paper, all the whatever that ruin your Kai scissors. So that's free. Now there's also going to be another thing that you get to do today. You're also going to get to go into the store, and each of you get to pick 2 spools of thread, any ones you want in the store. Carrie hates this because what I want you to pretend, this is the only time it's okay that you're shoplifting. And so you're going to, but only 2 each. Now, the reason for that is that what's happened now is it's time for me to explain the pictures behind me. So the pictures behind me are my family, and they live in Oregon, and there's 6 babies, 5 babies and 1 young man who's 13. And it's time. I've tried for 2 years to sell the business with no success. We're closing as Cross Sewing and Vacuum.
No.
And it's come with a lot of thought and a lot of hardship for me personally, But I want to read you this because I can't say it. I have to read it. And after 40 wonderful years in the sewing and vacuum industry, the time has come for me to step into a new chapter of life. This decision is not an easy one, but it is a necessary step for my family and our future. We will be relocating to Oregon to be closer to our children and grandchildren, embracing the joy of family. So we have some needs there, and we want to be with them. For more than 2 years, we've made an effort to find a qualified buyer who could carry on this business and continue serving this wonderful community. Unfortunately, despite our best attempts, a suitable transition was not possible. While this is not the outcome we had hoped for, we remain grateful for the years we have had and for each and every one of you who has supported us along the way. Reflecting on these past 4 decades, I'm filled with immense gratitude. It's been an absolute privilege to serve you and to share in your projects and passions, to build relationships and go far beyond business. The friendships, conversations, moments we've shared in the shop have meant the world to me. Your support and loyalty have been the heart of this journey, and for that, we're grateful. I also want to take a moment to recognize and express my deepest appreciation for our incredible employees, not only present, but past. The history is crazy. Their dedication, hard work, and commitment to serving our customers and community have been the backbone of our business, and they have shared in our mission, cared for each person who walked through our doors, and helped create a warm and welcoming atmosphere we have been so proud of over the years. I am truly thankful for each one of them and the role they've played in making this business what it is today, which is and has been a very successful sewing and vacuum business. Though saying goodbye is bittersweet, we are filled with excitement for the next chapter of our lives. While we miss seeing you all, we take with us cherished memories and friendships. Thank you for being a part of our story. And that is what we must do. So I've extended this lease. I think say goodbye to everybody. That's the announcement. And we can go ahead and hit over there, sign off. Hit the escape button. And then up in the top right. Not there.
Too late.
There you go.